Item C, receive report on effort to secure federal funding for street maintenance and rehabilitation project and adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Harris and Associates Incorporated for engineering and design services in an amount not to exceed $77,460. Clara?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I am here to provide you with a report on possible federal funding for the street rehabilitation program and to ask your approval for the city manager to execute a consultant contract with Harris and Associates. The federal government is working on development and approval of a so-called stimulus phase 2 federal funding for including infrastructure improvements. This is not a certainty, but based on the possibility that this stimulus funding will become available, MTC made the decision to issue a call for project for all of the agencies in the region to be able to meet the almost impossible requirement which will be included in this bill if this federal funding will become available. And that almost impossible requirement includes to have this project under contract by May 28th of May, which considering the very stringent federal requirement for any federal funding, having environmental clearance and eligibility clearance for those projects is on very tight schedule. To meet and to position the city in a strategic position to be able to take advantage of this federal funding, knowing the prior council direction to the city manager and the city manager direction to all of the department to aggressively seek any possible funding for so huge unmet transportation need for the city. The city hired and already asked Harris and Associates to help us with the development of this project and to work on our behalf with Caltrain for eligibility and environmental clearance for this project. And the city was able in 4 days, in essence, to submit the application for this project. But you have before you, you have a map showing all of the projects which were included in our application. And this list of projects represent, in essence, all of the federal funding eligible streets for in San Bruno, for which made any practical sense to have any rehabilitation treatment. The total cost estimated at this time is $2.1 million for the overlay treatments and the slurry seal for those roads in San Bruno. Not knowing how much available funding will become available, it was our strategic intent to include a broader range of projects, and depending how much funding will become available, then the list of projects can be scaled back accordingly. Is based on CCAG decisions so far. If this federal funding will become available, then the funding will be divided using Measure A formula between the agencies. And the biggest agencies will receive the federal funds, including San Bruno, And then those agencies, the smaller agencies who will not benefit from this time for these federal funds, then they will be eligible for the next phase of federal funding when will become available. If federal funding will not become available, then this work product can be used for future rehabilitation projects using other transportation-related funding like Measure A or gas tax allocation in future years. And this will not be a wasted effort, but the work product will be used other than certain portion of the project, like the environmental clearance or eligibility clearance, which in case of other type of funding will be used for this project, that really would not be necessary. And the total cost, including the professional engineering services, which is estimated for $77,000, plus the material testing and step time, the estimated overall project cost would be $2.4 million. With this update and my request and my recommendation for you to approve for the city manager to execute the consultant contract with Harris Associate, I am available for any question what you might have.
Any questions of staff?
Through the chair, very quickly, just for those listening and for them to have all of us to have a better understanding. A lot of folks would ask, how are the streets determined? Versus a lot of folks live someplace and say, my street's horrible. It needs to be first. But how are we determining what street on the list so that the folks can better understand?
In this case, for phase one, for phase one, the assessment was made based on priorities. For this phase two, in essence, all of the eligible streets are included in this package, except some of the section of the streets which really made no sense to have any treatment, that they had higher than 90 PCI, that really made no sense to have any treatment. Those segments were not included, but all San Bruno has certain streets on federal system, and only just those streets are eligible for federal funding. And if for some reason, I did not mention this before, if the federal funding will not become available, then this list of projects will not necessarily become the list of projects for a normal rehabilitation program for the city. But those, at that time, those streets will be reprioritized, including the other streets, irregardless of the limitation of the funding, and will be a different priority at that time versus what I am presenting you today.
City manager.
If I could add a simple clarification, the director referenced priorities. Those priorities are developed based on an analytical evaluation of every street segment within the community and compilation of their condition in a database that is monitored and maintained. So where I may look at a street and I think maybe that's not in good condition, in fact, it might be in better condition than another similarly situated street segment. And so it is in that manner that we identify the priorities, and in this particular case, as the director identified, only federally eligible streets can be considered for this particular funding. So when we go out with the Neighborhood Streets Rehabilitation Program or something else, if this funding is not awarded, we would again assess priorities based on the condition index and the streets that are eligible for the certain type of funding that we have available.
Through the chair.
Irene?
Can you clarify one more step? What makes a street federally eligible?
They are on the federal system. Many years ago, was certain streets in each agency were included in the federal system. Mainly at that time, the intent was to include major arterials, the highest ADT, the collector type of streets, which basically had a major or a higher transportation importance. Those were included on a so-called federal system, and only just those, not neighborhood street, but more those important arterial and collector type of streets were included on federal system.
Okay.
Now, if you are looking at all of these streets right now, does not necessarily make sense, everything what is on this list, and I know exactly what you are thinking about that, but doesn't change the fact that that's how it is right now on that system. And that's why it's only just these streets are eligible.
Okay, may I? Does that list get reviewed periodically, and if it does, is there
And
system?
this issue was discussed with the city manager, and it's not a periodical review, but it's a process how you can make those changes. But it's a very time-consuming and complicated process. But certainly one thing what will be worthwhile for the city to take on for the long term. But certainly that takes sometimes years to really be able to adjust the system information. And for the purpose of this project, really just wasn't feasible.
Okay. Thank you. That makes it much clearer.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Ibarra? No, Mr. Salazar?
I wanted a little clarification in terms of the feasibility of having either our existing or staff engineers redeployed from existing projects to do this, or to enhance their skill set to maybe take on more of the professional engineering services that are outlined here.
This is an ongoing process in our department to make sure before even the department made the decision to really seek outside support, was a internal process to make that determination if it was feasible for us internally to take on this additional task. Engineering division has a resource allocation plan, which basically assigned based on the commitments made by the department in our CIP for certain deadline and delivery for those projects, and makes assessment without major impact to already prior commitments if this additional task was feasible for us to perform. And was our determination that without major impact on already ongoing project, wasn't possible internally to take this additional task on. And that's why the department sought outside help. Even in this case, we'll be a internal project manager, and this project is assigned to one of the associate engineer, and he will have some kind of high level of project management, but his time is very limited, and this consultant really have to help him to make this to happen. This required, how you can see, a very labor-intensive commitment to really make sure that in this very short time, the city will have all of the approval needed from Caltrain.
If I could, I'd just like to mention that, I mean, this is, as being on the Surface Infrastructure Committee with the Vice Mayor, this must be exciting, because we're taking care of nearly 7 miles of road work, of which, I mean, it's my understanding that we should probably we need maybe another $20 million just to get
At least.
some of our roads up to par. So, and when I look at the list of the streets that are going to get some attention if we get this grant, you know, there's some pretty well-traveled streets. So I think the residents are going to appreciate it, and
Thank you.
it's a big chunk. I know we still got a ways to go, but it's still a big chunk.
I really appreciate your comment. It's our intent to come back to the full committee with the recommendation of the payment management study, which was just finalized a few months ago. But just for your general information, they're basically their recommendation to maintain the existing payment conditioning index. The city would need to invest at least on yearly basis $3.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an unending challenge.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? This does call for introduction of a resolution.
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.